The coffee in Captain Rodriguez's mug had gone cold hours ago, but she didn't notice. Her eyes stayed fixed on the massive display screen showing the outer edge of our solar system. Somewhere out there, beyond where the sun's influence finally fades into the endless dark, was the research ship Meridian. And right now, something was going very wrong. "Captain, we're getting some strange readings from the Meridian," called out Lieutenant Thompson from his station. His voice carried that careful tone people use when they're trying not to sound worried. But definitely our Rodriguez set down her mug and walked over to the communications array. The Meridian had been out there for 6 months now, testing some new technology that the science folks promised would change everything. She didn't pretend to understand all the technical details, but she knew enough to recognize when something wasn't normal. The ship had launched from Earth's orbital station with great fanfare. 12 of the brightest minds humanity had to offer, heading into the deepest space anyone had ever ventured. Their mission was simple in concept but incredibly complex in execution. They were testing quantum field generators, devices that could supposedly create stable communication channels across impossible distances. Dr. Patel, the mission's lead scientist, had explained it to her once. "Think of it like creating a tunnel through space itself," he had said, his eyes lighting up with enthusiasm. "Instead of sending radio signals that take years to reach their destination, we could have instant communication with any colony ship, any deep space station, anywhere. Humans might go." The possibilities were endless. Mars colonies could talk to Earth in real time. Ships exploring other star systems could stay in constant contact with home. It would change everything about how humanity expanded into the galaxy. But now, something was wrong with those same quantum generators. "What kind of readings are we getting?" Rodriguez asked, leaning over Thompson's shoulder to look at the data streaming across his screen. "The quantum field signatures are spiking way beyond normal parameters," Thompson replied, his fingers dancing across the controls as he tried to make sense of the information. "And Captain, these numbers don't make sense. According to this, they're generating fields that should be impossible." Rodriguez felt a cold knot forming in her stomach. She had been in space long enough to know that when something seemed impossible, it usually meant someone was about to die. "Get me a direct line to Dr. Patel," she ordered. "I want to know what's happening out there." The communication took several minutes to establish. Even with the best technology available, the Meridian was so far away that radio signals took precious time to travel back and forth. During those long minutes of waiting, Rodriguez found herself thinking about the crew out there. She knew most of them personally. There was Dr. Yamamoto, the quiet physicist who had 3 kids back on Earth and always carried their pictures in his pocket. Engineer Hassan, who could fix anything mechanical but couldn't cook to save her life. The pilot, Captain Kim, who had flown more dangerous missions than anyone had a right to survive. When Dr. Patel's voice finally crackled through the speakers, it was filled with excitement rather than fear. "Control, this is incredible. The quantum fields are responding in ways we never predicted. We're seeing space-time distortions that suggest we might have stumbled onto something revolutionary." "Doctor, your readings look dangerous from here," Rodriguez responded. "Are you sure your crew is safe?" "Safer than safe, Captain. We're making history out here. The generators are creating stable pockets of altered space-time. If we can understand how to control this, we could revolutionize space travel itself." Rodriguez wasn't convinced, but Patel was the expert. Still, years of experience had taught her to trust her instincts. And right now, those instincts were screaming that something bad was about to happen. Over the next hour, the readings from Meridian became increasingly strange. The quantum signatures were fluctuating in patterns that defied every known law of physics. Lieutenant Thompson had called in 2 other specialists, and all 3 of them were staring at their screens with expressions that mixed fascination with growing concern. "Captain," one of the specialists called out, "I think you need to see this. The space around Meridian is doing something I've never seen before." On the main display, a representation of the space around the research ship showed waves of distorted reality rippling outward from their position. It looked almost like dropping a stone into still water, except this was happening in the fabric of space-time itself. Dr. Patel, are you seeing this on your end? Rodriguez asked into the communication system. The response came back filled with static and excitement. Control, it's beautiful. The field is stabilizing into something that looks almost like a doorway. We're going to try to get closer and take detailed scans. Negative, Meridian. Rodriguez shouted into the microphone. Maintain safe distance until we can analyze what you're dealing with. But the signal was already degrading. Patel's voice came through in broken fragments. ... Amazing readings. Field is expanding. Never seen anything like. Going to investigate. And then silence. Thompson, status report, Rodriguez ordered, though she could already see the answer on the screens around her. Communication lost, Captain. All telemetry from Meridian has stopped. The next few hours were frantic. Every available ship in the outer system was directed toward Meridian's last known position. Long-range sensors swept the area where the research vessel should have been. Communication arrays broadcast on every frequency, hoping to pick up even the weakest signal. They found nothing. It was as if the Meridian and her crew of 12 had simply vanished from existence. There was no debris field suggesting an explosion, no radiation signatures indicating a reactor breach, no emergency beacons, nothing at all except empty space where a ship full of people had been just hours before. The search continued for weeks. Ships combed through every cubic meter of space. In an expanding sphere around Meridian's last position, deep space telescopes focused on the area, looking for any trace of the missing vessel. Mathematical models tried to predict where the ship might have gone if the quantum field had somehow pushed it off course. Every search came up empty. The families of the crew members refused to give up hope for months. Dr. Yamamoto's wife insisted that her husband was too smart to let anything bad happen to his team. Engineer Hassan's mother organized prayer vigils that drew hundreds of people. Captain Kim's father, a retired admiral, used every contact he had to keep the search going long after official efforts had been called off. But as the months turned into a year, and then into 2 years, hope began to fade. Memorial services were held, the families grieved. The Meridian was officially declared lost with all hands, and the experimental quantum field technology was classified as too dangerous for further testing. Rodriguez kept a small model of the Meridian on her desk, a reminder of the day when 12 good people had vanished into the unknown. She often found herself staring at it during quiet moments, wondering what had really happened out there in the dark between the stars. The official report blamed equipment failure, suggesting that the quantum generators had somehow created an unstable field that destroyed the ship. But Rodriguez had seen those final readings, had heard the excitement in Dr. Patel's voice as he described something impossible. She couldn't shake the feeling that the Meridian hadn't been destroyed. Somehow, somewhere, that ship and her crew was still out there, lost in a place that existed beyond the reach of normal space and time. She just never imagined that 3 years later, she would be proven right in the most impossible way imaginable. Officer Garcia was finishing her 3rd cup of coffee when the alarm started screaming. After 80 months working the night shift at Luna Base Tracking Station, she had gotten used to the quiet hours when space seemed empty and peaceful. Most nights, the only signals she detected were routine communications between cargo ships and the occasional research probe sending back data from the outer planets, but this was different. Every screen in the control room was flashing red, and the computer systems were making sounds she had never heard before. "What the hell is going on?" muttered Technician Brooks, rolling his chair over to Garcia's station. His hair was sticking up from where he had been dozing at his desk, and his eyes were wide with confusion. Garcia's hands flew over the controls, trying to make sense of what her instruments were telling her. "I'm getting readings of an incoming vessel, but these numbers can't be right." "What kind of numbers?" "According to this, something is approaching from deep space at impossible speeds. I mean, these velocity readings would tear apart any ship ever built." Brooks leaned closer to the screen, his coffee forgotten. Maybe it's an asteroid? Sometimes the computer misidentifies objects when they're moving fast. Garcia shook her head, pointing at the data streaming across her monitor. No, look at this. It's definitely artificial. The mass readings suggest a ship about the size of a research vessel, and it's transmitting some kind of signal. She adjusted the communication array, trying to clean up the incoming transmission. What came through the speakers made both of them freeze. It was a ship identification beacon broadcasting, a registry number they both recognized. The Meridian. That's impossible, Brooks whispered. The Meridian disappeared 3 years ago. Everyone knows that. Garcia felt her heart racing as she ran the signal through every verification protocol they had. Each test came back with the same result. The ship approaching Luna Base was definitely the Meridian, the research vessel that had vanished without a trace during the quantum field experiments. We need to call this in immediately, she said, reaching for the emergency communication line. That connected directly to Deep Space Command. Within minutes, every senior officer in the solar system was being woken up and briefed on the situation. The Meridian, lost for 3 years and presumed destroyed, was somehow heading home. Commander Walsh had been in charge of deep space operations for only 6 months, having taken over after the previous commander retired following the Meridian incident. She arrived at the control center still wearing her sleeping clothes, her hair hastily pulled back and her face showing the strain of being jarred awake by impossible news. "Show me everything," she ordered, settling into the chair beside Garcia's station. The next few hours were a blur of activity. Scientists, military officials, and engineers crowded into the control room, all trying to understand what they were seeing. The Meridian was definitely real, definitely approaching, and definitely impossible. Dr. Foster, the lead physicist from the original quantum field project, was brought in via video link from Earth. Her face on the screen showed a mixture of excitement and fear as she studied the incoming data. "The ship's energy signature is completely different from when it left," she explained to the room full of people. "These readings suggest the hull is somehow protected by fields that shouldn't be possible to generate." "What do you mean, Commander?" Walsh asked. "The Meridian is traveling through space at speeds that should have turned it into cosmic dust years ago. But something is protecting it, bending the laws of physics around the ship like a bubble of altered reality." As the ship got closer, more impossible details became clear. The hull showed no signs of damage from 3 years in space. No cosmic radiation scoring, no impact marks from space debris, nothing to suggest it had been anywhere except in perfect storage. "Commander," Garcia called out, "I'm receiving a communication request from the Meridian." "They want to talk." Walsh felt her mouth go dry. "Put it through." The voice that came through the speakers was clear and familiar. It was Captain Kim, the pilot who had been leading the Meridian mission when it disappeared. "Luna Base, this is Captain Kim aboard the Meridian requesting docking clearance at station. Omega 7, we have completed our mission and are ready to return home." The room fell silent. Finally, Commander Walsh found her voice. "Captain Kim, this is Commander Walsh at Deep Space Operations. You've been missing for 3 years. What is your status?" There was a pause, then Kim's voice came back sounding confused. 3 years? "Commander, our mission logs show we've been gone for 3 days. We lost contact with Earth for a while due to some interference from the quantum field experiments, but we've been trying to get home ever since." Walsh looked around. The room at the faces of scientists and engineers, all showing the same expression of disbelief. "Captain, you disappeared on March 15th, 2089. Today's date is March 18th, 2092. Another long pause. When Kim spoke again, his voice was shaky. That's impossible. We left Earth 3 days ago. Our chronometers, our biological markers, everything shows 3 days. Dr. Foster leaned toward the microphone. "Captain Kim, this is Dr. Foster. Do you remember me?" "Of course, Doctor. You were part of the team that designed our quantum field generators. Captain, I need you to run a full system diagnostic on your ship. Check every system, every piece of equipment, and I need you to tell me about what happened during your mission." Over the next hour, as the Meridian approached Station Omega 7, Captain Kim and his crew ran through their systems and described their experience. According to them, the quantum field experiments had worked better than anyone had hoped. They had created what they described as a pocket of altered space-time, where the normal rules of physics seemed suspended. It was beautiful, Kim explained. Space around us became fluid, like we were floating in a sea of liquid starlight. Our instruments were picking up readings that shouldn't have been possible. Dr. Foster was taking notes furiously. Captain, did you encounter anything else in this altered space? Any other ships? Any unusual phenomena? Well, there was something, Kim admitted. We detected what seemed like structures in the distance, things that looked almost like buildings or machines. But they were huge, bigger than anything humans could build. We tried to investigate, but every time we got close, they seemed to move away from us. The room buzzed with whispered conversations. Commander Walsh held up her hand for silence. Captain, I need you to prepare your crew for extensive debriefing once you dock. We have a lot of questions, and frankly, your return raises more mysteries than it solves. As the Meridian finally approached the docking bay at Station Omega 7, crowds of people gathered to watch. News of the ship's return had spread quickly, and families of the crew members were racing to get to the station. Dr. Yamamoto's wife had fainted when she received the call. Engineer Hassan's mother was already on a transport ship, crying tears of joy. The docking procedure went smoothly, though several technicians noted that the Meridian's hull seemed to shimmer slightly, as if surrounded by a barely visible energy field. When the airlock finally opened and the crew stepped out, gasps echoed through the docking bay. The 12 crew members looked exactly as they had 3 years ago. Not a day older, not showing any signs of the stress that 3 years in space should have caused. They moved with the same energy, showed the same mannerisms, even wore the same clothes they had been wearing when they left Dr. Patel, the missions. Lead scientist was the first to speak as he stepped onto the station. It's good to be home, he said, looking around at the gathered crowd. Though I have to say, you all look like you've seen a ghost. Commander Walsh stepped forward, studying his face carefully. Doctor, you really don't remember being gone for 3 years? Patel shook his head, his expression genuinely confused. Commander, I remember leaving Earth. I remember our experiments with the quantum fields, and I remember finding our way back home. But according to our ship's logs and our own biological clocks, that entire journey took 3 days, not 3 years. As the crew was led away for medical examinations and debriefing, one thing became clear to everyone watching. Whatever had happened to the Meridian during its 3-year absence, the crew had experienced something that existed outside the normal flow of time and space, and they had brought something back with them. That would change everything humanity thought they knew about the universe. The medical bay at Station Omega 7 had never seen anything like this. Dr. Reynolds, the station's chief medical officer, stared at the test results for the 3rd time, unable to believe what the instruments were telling her. She had examined all 12 crew members from the Meridian, and every single scan showed the same impossible truth. Their cellular aging has completely stopped, she explained to Commander Walsh, holding up a tablet displaying the medical data. I mean completely. Down to the molecular level, these people are exactly the same age they were 3 years ago. Their DNA shows no degradation, their organs show no wear, even their hair and nails haven't grown. Commander Walsh rubbed her temples, feeling a headache building. Is that even possible? According to everything we know about human biology, absolutely not. The human body is constantly changing, constantly aging. Even in the best conditions, we should see some cellular changes. Over 3 years, but these people, it's like time stopped for them. In the debriefing room down the hall, Dr. Patel sat across from a team of scientists and military officials, trying to explain what he and his crew had experienced. His hands moved animatedly as he spoke, his eyes bright with the memory of what they had seen. We were testing the quantum field generators when something unexpected happened, he began. The field started resonating in ways our models never predicted. Instead of creating simple communication channels, They began warping space-time itself. Captain Kim, sitting beside him, nodded in agreement. I've been flying ships for 20 years, and I've never seen anything like it. Space around us started to ... done. That's the only way I can describe it. Like we were sitting inside a soap bubble, and everything outside was distorted. Engineer Hassan leaned forward, her voice filled with wonder. The instruments went crazy. At first, every reading was off the charts. But then something strange happened. The field stabilized, and we found ourselves in this pocket of altered reality. Dr. Foster, who was leading the debriefing via video link from Earth, interrupted with questions. Can you describe this altered space in more detail? What did it look like? Dr. Yamamoto, the quiet physicist, spoke up. It was beautiful and terrifying. At the same time, imagine being inside a cathedral made of pure energy. The walls seemed to shift and flow like liquid light, and we could see patterns in the fabric of space itself. But here's the strangest part, added Pilot Jackson, who had been mostly silent until now. Time felt different there. We could think normally, move normally, but everything seemed to happen in slow motion. A conversation that felt like it lasted an hour might have only taken a few minutes according to our instruments. The debriefing. Team exchanged glances. None of this made sense according to known physics, but the crew's accounts were remarkably consistent. All 12 people were telling the same story, with details that matched perfectly across multiple interviews. Tell us about the structures you mentioned, Commander Walsh said. Captain Kim mentioned seeing buildings or machines in the distance. The crew members looked at each other, and Dr. Patel took a deep breath before continuing. That's where things get really strange. About halfway through our time in that space, we started detecting massive objects in the distance. They were enormous, easily the size of cities, and they seemed to be made of the same energy that was flowing around us. We tried to approach them, Captain Kim added. But every time we got closer, they seemed to move away. Not fast, not aggressively, just staying at the same distance no matter how we tried to reach them. Engineer Hassan pulled out a small device and placed it on the table. We managed to record some of what we saw. The data files are unlike anything in our databases. The recording played on the room's main screen, showing swirling patterns of light and energy that seemed to pulse with their own rhythm. In the distance, massive shapes could be seen floating in what looked like an ocean of stars. The structures were clearly artificial, with geometric patterns that suggested incredible intelligence behind their design. My God, whispered Dr. Foster. Through the video link, those patterns, they're mathematical sequences. Complex ones that we're only beginning to understand ourselves. Dr. Yamamoto nodded. That's what we thought too. But then something happened that changed everything. The room fell silent, waiting for him to continue. On our third day in that space, one of the structures approached us, not aggressively but deliberately. It stopped about a kilometer away from our ship, and then it communicated with us. Communicated how? Commander Walsh asked, though. She wasn't sure she wanted to hear the answer. Not with words or signals, Dr. Patel explained. It was more like thoughts and images appearing directly in our minds. All of us experienced it at the same time, all received the same information. Captain Kim's voice dropped to almost a whisper. They told us they had been watching humanity for a long time, waiting to see if we were ready for the next step in our development. The scientists in the room erupted in whispered conversations, but Commander Walsh held up her hand for silence. What kind of next step? They called it transcendence, Engineer Hassan said. Moving beyond our physical limitations, joining what they described as a community of advanced civilizations that exist throughout the galaxy. Dr. Yamamoto pulled out his tablet and showed them a series of equations that covered the screen. They gave us these mathematical formulas that describe technologies we can barely imagine, ways to manipulate space and time, to create energy from nothing, to communicate across any distance instantaneously. But they also gave us a warning. Pilot Jackson added, his face serious. They said that every species reaches a point where they must choose between wisdom and destruction. The technology they were sharing with us could help humanity reach unimaginable heights, or it could destroy us completely. Dr. Foster's voice came through the speakers, filled with excitement and concern. Did they explain what would determine which path humanity takes? Dr. Patel nodded slowly. They said it would depend on what we do with the gifts they gave us. If we use the technology to help all of humanity, to explore and grow and learn, then we'll be welcomed into their community. But if we use it for war, for control, for personal gain at the expense of others, double quote, what happens then? Commander Walsh asked. They didn't say exactly, Captain Kim replied, but they made it clear that the consequences would extend far beyond Earth, that our choices would affect the balance of the entire galaxy. The room was quiet for a long moment as everyone processed what they had heard. Finally, Dr. Foster spoke up from Earth. You mentioned that they gave you gifts. What exactly did they give you? Engineer Hassan smiled for the first time since. The debriefing began. They modified our ship, enhanced the quantum field generators with technology that shouldn't be possible. But more than that, they gave us knowledge, understanding of how the universe really works at its deepest levels. And they're still watching, Dr. Yamamoto added quietly. Before we left that space, they made it clear that humanity is being observed. Our every action is being evaluated to determine if we're ready for what comes next. Commander Walsh felt a chill run down her spine. Are you saying there are alien intelligences actively monitoring Earth right now? Not just monitoring, Dr. Patel said. Testing. They've given us incredible technology, but it comes with a price. We have to prove that we're wise enough to use it responsibly. As the debriefing continued into the night, one thing became increasingly clear to everyone in the room. The return of the Meridian wasn't just the end of a mystery. It was the beginning of the most important chapter in human history. And somewhere out there, in the space between spaces, ancient intelligences were watching to see what humanity would do next. Dr. Foster had been staring at the same equation for 6 hours straight, and it still made no sense. As Earth's leading expert on quantum mechanics, she thought she understood the fundamental laws that governed reality. But the mathematical formulas displayed on her screen seemed to mock everything she had learned during her 30-year career. This is impossible, she muttered for the 100th time, rubbing her tired eyes. The coffee cup beside her had been empty for hours, but she barely noticed. Her entire team of physicists was scattered around the laboratory, each one focused on different pieces of the technological puzzle that the Meridian had brought back from their impossible journey. Dr. Chun, her research partner, looked up from his own workstation with frustration written across his face. Amanda, look at this energy reading. According to our instruments, the Meridian's quantum generators are producing unlimited clean energy. Not just a lot of energy, but literally unlimited. The output readings don't even make sense. Foster walked over to examine his data, her scientific mind reeling at what she saw. The ship's power systems were generating energy levels that violated the basic principle of conservation of energy. In simple terms, they were creating something from nothing, which should have been absolutely impossible. Run the test again? She instructed. Maybe there's an error in our equipment. Chun had already run the test 12 times. Each result came back the same. The Meridian was somehow drawing energy from empty space itself, tapping into what the crew described as the fundamental force that held the universe together. Meanwhile, in the ship's engineering bay, a team of the world's best technicians was trying to understand how the quantum field generators had been modified. What they found defied everything they knew about technology and materials science. Chief Engineer Rodriguez held up a small component that had been removed from one of the generators. Under normal light, it looked like ordinary metal. But when examined under special instruments, it revealed structures that shouldn't exist. Look at this, he called to his team, placing the component under an electron microscope. The image that appeared on their screens showed atomic structures arranged in patterns that seemed to shift and change as they watched. The atoms are organizing themselves, whispered Technician Park, unable to believe what she was seeing. They're actually rearranging their structure in real time, adapting to whatever function the component needs to perform. Dr. Foster joined them in the engineering bay, bringing the mathematical formulas that the Meridian crew claimed to have received from the alien intelligences. As she compared the equations to the actual technology, a disturbing pattern began to emerge. These modifications weren't made by human hands, she announced to the gathered team. The precision required to arrange matter at the atomic level like this is beyond anything we're capable of. Someone or something with technology far advanced beyond ours redesigned this equipment. The implications sent chills through everyone in the room. Humanity had always prided itself on its technological achievements, but what they were looking at suggested that their greatest accomplishments were like children's toys compared to what was possible. Over the following weeks, more impossible discoveries emerged from their analysis of the Meridian. The ship's hull had been reinforced with materials that were stronger than anything in the periodic table, yet somehow remained as light as aluminum. The navigation systems could calculate routes through space-time itself, treating the fabric of reality like a highway system. Most disturbing of all, the technology appeared to be learning and improving itself without any human input. "It's like the ship has become alive," reported Dr. Martinez, the computer specialist who had been analyzing the Meridian systems. "The artificial intelligence that controls the quantum generators is rewriting its own code, becoming more sophisticated every day." Commander Walsh, who had been overseeing the investigation, felt a growing sense of unease. "Is it possible that this technology could become dangerous?" Dr. Foster paused in her work, considering the question carefully. "Honestly, we don't know." The crew described receiving warnings from the alien intelligences about the responsible use of this technology. Maybe those warnings were more serious than we initially thought. The breakthrough came when Dr. Chun discovered that the modified quantum generators could do more than just produce unlimited energy. They could actually manipulate the fundamental forces of nature in ways that bordered on magic. "Watch this," he said to the assembled team, connecting one of the smaller generators to a simple steel rod. As the device activated, the rod began to change. Rust that had accumulated over years simply vanished. Microscopic damage to the metal structure repaired itself. Within minutes, the old, worn piece of steel looked brand new. "It's reversing entropy," Dr. Foster breathed, hardly able to believe what she was seeing. "That device is actually making things younger, undoing the effects of time and wear." The implications were staggering. If this technology could reverse aging in metals, what could it do to living tissue? Could it potentially make people younger? Could it heal diseases that had been considered incurable? But with each new discovery came new questions and new concerns. The technology was advancing beyond their ability to understand or control it. The ship's quantum field generators were creating stable wormholes that could theoretically allow instant travel to any point in the galaxy. The energy systems were producing power on a scale that could supply the entire Earth for centuries. Dr. Foster called an emergency meeting with world leaders via secure video conference. Representatives from every major nation gathered virtually to hear her report on what they had discovered. "Ladies and gentlemen," she began, her voice serious, "we are dealing with technology that could revolutionize human civilization overnight. We could solve the energy crisis, cure diseases, explore the galaxy, and fundamentally change what it means to be human." "That sounds like wonderful news," commented the representative from the European Union. "Why do you sound so concerned?" Foster took a deep breath before answering. "Because this same technology could also destroy us. The power we're dealing with is beyond anything humans have ever controlled. In the wrong hands, these quantum generators could tear apart the fabric of space-time itself." The room fell silent as the implications sank in. The technology that could save humanity could just as easily destroy it, and they were still barely beginning to understand how it worked. "The alien intelligences that gave us this technology weren't being generous," Dr. Foster continued. "They were testing us. They want to see if we're wise enough to use unlimited power responsibly." Dr. Chun, who had joined the conference, added his own concerns. The technology is evolving faster than we can study it. Every day, the ship systems become more sophisticated, more powerful. We may be approaching a point where we can no longer control what we've been given. As the meeting continued, reports began coming in from around the world. Strange energy readings were being detected in Earth's upper atmosphere. Deep space monitoring stations were picking up signals that seemed to originate from empty space itself. It appears that our return from that altered dimension hasn't gone unnoticed, reported the director of the Global Space Monitoring Network. We're detecting what can only be described as surveillance activity throughout the solar system. Commander Walsh leaned forward in her chair. Are you saying we're being watched? More than watched. It's as if the entire solar system has become a laboratory and we're the subjects of an ongoing experiment. Dr. Foster closed her laptop and looked directly into the camera. The crew of the Meridian brought back more than just advanced technology. They brought back a test that will determine the future of human civilization. And I'm not sure we're prepared for what happens if we fail. The meeting ended with more questions than answers, but one thing was clear to everyone involved. Humanity stood at a crossroads unlike any in its history, holding power that could either elevate them to unimaginable heights or destroy them completely. And somewhere in the vast darkness of space, ancient intelligences were watching to see which path humanity would choose. The emergency session of the United Nations had been going on for 12 hours, and tempers were running high. Representatives from every nation on Earth sat in the assembly hall, arguing about what to do with the technology that the Meridian had brought back. Outside the building, protesters filled the streets, some demanding that the alien technology be used to solve world hunger and disease, others calling for it to be destroyed before it could destroy humanity. Dr. Patel stood at the podium, looking exhausted but determined. For the past month, he and his crew had been traveling the world, briefing government officials and scientists about their encounter with the alien intelligences. Today felt different. Today, he had something new to tell them. Ladies and gentlemen, he began, his voice carrying across the hushed assembly hall, I've called this emergency session because something has changed. The alien intelligences that my crew encountered have made contact again. A murmur of concern rippled through the crowd. Commander Walsh, who was sitting in the front row, felt her stomach tighten with worry. Last night, all 12 members of the Meridian crew experienced the same dream, Dr. Patel continued. But it wasn't really a dream. It was a message, delivered directly to our minds while we slept. The beings we met in that altered dimension of space have been watching our progress with the technology they gave us. He paused, looking out at the faces of world leaders who held the future of humanity in their hands. They are not pleased with what they've seen. The representative from the United States leaned forward in his seat. What exactly did they tell you, Dr. Patel? They showed us images of what's been happening around the world since we returned. Nations trying to weaponize the quantum generators. Corporations attempting to patent the alien technologies for profit. Military forces planning to use the energy systems to build more powerful weapons. Dr. Patel activated a holographic display that showed satellite images from around the globe. Secret facilities were highlighted in red, places where governments and private companies were attempting to reverse engineer the alien technology for their own purposes. They know about all of it, he said quietly. Every attempt to turn their gift into a tool of war or profit. And they've made their position clear. If humanity continues down this path, there will be consequences. The Chinese representative stood up. Are you saying they've threatened us? Dr. Yamamoto, who had been sitting silently beside Dr. Patel, rose to answer. Not threatened, warned. There's a difference. They explained that every species that reaches our level of development faces the same choice. Some choose wisely and are welcomed into the galactic community. Others choose poorly and face isolation or worse. What does or worse mean? Asked the representative from Brazil. Dr. Yamamoto's face was grim. They showed us images of dead worlds, planets where advanced Civilizations once thrived but destroyed themselves with technology they weren't ready to handle responsibly. Entire solar systems that are now nothing but cosmic graveyards because their inhabitants chose power over wisdom. The assembly hall erupted in concerned conversations. Some delegates were demanding more details about these alien warnings, while others questioned whether the Meridian crew could be trusted. Through it all, Dr. Patel waited patiently for order to be restored. Engineer Hassan stepped forward to speak. There's something else you need to know. The technology isn't just sitting passively in our laboratories anymore. It's starting to respond to how we're using it. She pulled out a tablet displaying energy readings from facilities around the world. In places where the technology is being developed for peaceful purposes, for healing and exploration and clean energy, the quantum generators are becoming more efficient, more powerful. But in facilities where it's being weaponized, the equipment is starting to malfunction. Dr. Foster, who was participating via video link from her laboratory, confirmed Hassan's report. We've documented 17 separate incidents in the past week where attempts to create weapons using the alien technology have resulted in equipment failures. It's as if the technology itself refuses to be used for destructive purposes. Captain Kim took the podium next, his voice heavy with the weight of what he had to share. During our most recent contact with the alien intelligences, they gave us a timeline. Humanity has 1 year to prove that we can use their gift wisely. 1 year to show that we're ready to join the community of advanced civilizations that exists throughout the galaxy. And if we fail this test? Asked the representative from Germany. They didn't specify exactly what would happen, Kim replied. But they made it clear that the technology would be taken away from us. All of it, the quantum generators, the advanced materials, even the knowledge they shared with us. It would all simply stop working. Dr. Patel returned to the podium, his expression serious. But that's not the worst part. They also warned us that if humanity proves itself unworthy, we'll be marked as a dangerous species. Other advanced civilizations throughout the galaxy will be warned to avoid contact with us. We'll be quarantined, left to develop on our own, until we either learn wisdom or destroy ourselves. The implications of this warning sent a chill through everyone in the assembly hall. Humanity would not only lose access to incredible technology, but would also be cut off from any future contact with alien civilizations. They would be alone in the universe, branded as too dangerous for peaceful contact. However, Dr. Patel continued, they also showed us what could happen if we pass their test. If we prove that we can use their technology for the benefit of all humanity, for exploration and healing and growth rather than war and profit, then we'll be welcomed into a community that spans the entire galaxy. He activated another holographic display, this one showing images that took everyone's breath away. Vast cities floating in space connected by streams of pure energy. Ships that could travel between stars in the blink of an eye. Beings from hundreds of different worlds all working together to explore the mysteries of the universe. This is what awaits us if we choose wisely, Dr. Patel said. A chance to become part of something larger than ourselves, to learn from civilizations that have existed for millions of years, to help explore and protect the galaxy itself. Engineer Hassan stepped forward again. The alien intelligences made one thing very clear. The choice isn't going to be made by governments or corporations or military leaders. It's going to be made by all of humanity working together. The technology will only reach its full potential if it's shared freely, used for the common good rather than personal gain. Dr. Yamamoto nodded in agreement. They told us that they've been watching human civilization for thousands of years, waiting for us to reach this point. They've seen us at our worst with wars and hatred and greed, but they've also seen us at our best, with acts of courage and compassion and sacrifice. The question now, Captain Kim added, is which side of humanity will win out? Will we use this incredible gift to build a better world for everyone, or will we let fear and greed turn it into just another weapon? As the assembly session continued into the night, reports began coming in from around the world. In some places, people were already working together to use the alien technology for good. Medical centers were using the quantum generators to power new healing devices. Environmental groups were developing clean energy systems that could end pollution forever. Space agencies were planning missions that could take humans to the stars, but in other places, the worst aspects of human nature were on display. Military. Contractors were fighting over alien technology patents. Corporate executives were planning to use the new energy systems to consolidate power. Political leaders were scheming about how to use the advanced materials to build better weapons. Dr. Patel looked out at the assembly of world leaders, knowing that the next year would determine the fate of human civilization. The beings that gave us this technology have been clear about one thing. They're not going to intervene to save us from ourselves. The choice is ours to make. He paused, letting the weight of his words sink in. 1 year from now, they'll return to judge what we've done with their gift. And depending on that judgment, humanity will either take its place among the stars or remain forever alone in the darkness. As delegates filed out of the assembly hall, each carrying the burden of humanity's future, strange lights began appearing in the night sky above New York City. Similar phenomena were being reported from around the world, reminders that somewhere out there, ancient intelligences were watching and waiting to see what choice humanity would make. The test had begun, and the fate of the entire human race hung in the balance.